When a man walks away calmly, without anger or emotional collapse, it communicates something far more powerful than words ever could. It shows emotional strength, not the kind that needs to dominate or intimidate, but the kind that comes from inner control. Most people react when they feel hurt. They argue, explain, defend, or try to change the outcome through force of emotion. Choosing peace instead of reaction immediately sets you apart. Emotional strength isn't loud, it doesn't announce itself, it's visible in restraint. When you walk away without bitterness, without trying to win the last word, it signals that your sense of self isn't fragile. You're not trying to prove your value, you already know it. And that quiet certainty is deeply respected. Women are instinctively drawn to emotional stability. Chaos feels exciting at first, but it never feels safe. When a man remains calm under emotional pressure, it triggers respect because it shows leadership over himself. You're not being led by impulse or ego, you're choosing dignity. That choice speaks volumes. Walking away peacefully also removes drama from the equation. Drama feeds emotional volatility. Without it, the situation becomes clear. There's no confusion about intentions, no emotional manipulation, just a clean decision made with self respect. That clarity creates a sense of grounded masculinity that is hard to ignore. Another important aspect is that calmness disarms defensiveness. When you don't react, there's nothing to fight against, no argument to win, no emotional fire to feed. That silence forces reflection. It creates space for perspective instead of resistance. Many men believe that expressing anger shows strength. In reality, uncontrolled emotion often signals insecurity. Calm withdrawal shows the opposite. It communicates that you're not dependent on the situation to feel whole. You can step away without losing yourself. This also reshapes how you're remembered. Emotional outbursts fade quickly, but calm exits linger. They leave questions, they invite reflection, they create contrast, and that contrast elevates respect. Walking away peacefully doesn't mean you didn't care, it means you cared enough about yourself to choose composure. And composure is one of the most respected traits a man can display. That's how emotional strength quietly commands respect. When you walk away without confrontation, something important happens. Access is removed without creating resistance. You don't argue, you don't explain, you don't demand change. You simply step back, and that quiet decision shifts the dynamic in a way force never could. Conflict often keeps people emotionally connected, even when things aren't healthy. Arguments create engagement, emotional reactions keep the bond alive. When you remove yourself peacefully, that engagement disappears. There's no emotional hook left to grab onto, and that absence changes how you're perceived. By not fighting, you avoid becoming the villain in the story. There's no explosion to justify, no harsh words to replay, no emotional mess to blame. Your exit feels clean, and because it's clean, it invites reflection instead of defensiveness. This approach also shows emotional intelligence. You understand that not every boundary needs to be spoken, some boundaries are actions. When respect fades, you don't negotiate it back, you remove access. That's a powerful statement because it's grounded in self-respect, not control. Removing access quietly also avoids power struggles. Power struggles keep both people locked in a tug of war. Walking away peacefully drops the rope entirely. You're not trying to win, you're choosing peace. And choosing peace often feels stronger than choosing dominance. Another important element is timing. When emotions are high, words are rarely heard. Silence allows emotions to settle. It creates space where clarity can form. By stepping away without conflict, you allow life to do the teaching instead of your explanations. This doesn't mean you're avoiding accountability or responsibility. It means you recognize when communication has lost its effectiveness. You're not withdrawing to punish, you're withdrawing to protect your peace. When access is removed calmly, it creates curiosity. The sudden absence of emotional engagement feels different. It's not rejection, it's distance with dignity. And that distinction matters. It leaves room for respect to grow instead of resentment. People often don't realize the value of something until it's no longer available. By stepping back without conflict, you allow that realization to happen naturally. That's how removing access peacefully shifts power without creating enemies. When you leave quietly, without anger or emotional explanation, your absence becomes meaningful, not because you disappear to make a point, but because the space you once filled is suddenly noticeable. Without arguments or drama to distract from the truth, reflection naturally begins, and reflection changes perception. Arguments create noise, Noise keeps people focused on defending their position instead of evaluating reality. When you remove noise, what's left is clarity. She begins to notice the emotional stability you brought, the consistency you offered, the calm presence that balanced the dynamic. Those qualities are often invisible when they're always available, but absence brings them into focus. Walking away peacefully reframes your value. Instead of being remembered for conflict, you're remembered for composure. Instead of emotional chaos, there's emotional contrast. That contrast forces comparison. Life without you feels different, not necessarily dramatic, but quieter, less grounded. And in that quiet, your value becomes clearer. This isn't about regret at first. It's about awareness that certain standards, behaviors, and emotional qualities are not easily replaced. Your absence becomes a reference point. Every interaction afterward is measured against what was lost. And when others don't offer the same steadiness, the difference stands out. Peaceful absence also prevents negative narratives from forming. When you don't react emotionally, there's nothing to frame as unreasonable or controlling. The story remains neutral, and neutrality invites honesty. It becomes harder to justify walking away from someone who left with dignity. Another important element is time. Time amplifies clinicial emotions fade, impulses settle, and once emotional intensity decreases, rational evaluation begins. That's when value is reassessed honestly without distortion. You didn't argue for your worth. You didn't demand recognition. You let reality speak. And reality speaks louder than persuasion. Walking away calmly also shows that your presence was a choice, not a dependency. That distinction is powerful. It elevates how you're remembered. It reframes the relationship dynamic in your favor. Absence, when combined with dignity, becomes a mirror. It reflects what was taken for granted. And what's seen clearly is often respected deeply. That's how leaving quietly forces reevaluation without saying a word. When you walk away without chasing explanations, validation, or closure, you send a message that goes deeper than words. Your identity isn't dependent on being chosen. Most men, when faced with emotional uncertainty, instinctively seek reassurance. They want clarity, they want answers, they want to be understood. But the need for validation quietly signals insecurity, even when intentions are good. Refusing to chase validation shows inner stability. It communicates that your sense of worth is internal, not negotiated. You're not asking someone else to confirm your value. You already live from it. And that self sufficiency is deeply respected. Chasing explanations often keeps you emotionally tied to someone who has already checked out. It turns you into a participant in a one sided effort. By not engaging in that cycle, you protect your emotional energy and your dignity. You don't argue your case. You don't plead to be seen correctly. You allow your absence to speak instead. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you understand that respect cannot be forced through conversation. Respect grows when actions align with values. Walking away calmly shows that your standards are non negotiable, even when emotions are involved. Another important aspect is how this reframes power. Validation seeking puts the other person in a position of authority. They become the judge of your worth. When you step away without demanding approval, that hierarchy collapses. The dynamic equalizes where respect lives. Refusing to chase also prevents emotional overexposure. Oversharing feelings too early or too intensely often overwhelms attraction. By staying composed, you maintain emotional mystery and depth. You don't give away your emotional center to someone who hasn't earned access to it. There's also a long term effect. When someone realizes you didn't need their approval to move forward, it challenges assumptions, it forces reflection, it disrupts the belief that you would always be available. That disruption creates respect because independence is respected instinctively. Walking away without validation, seeking also shows emotional maturity. You recognize when communication has reached its limit. You don't force understanding where readiness is missing. You accept reality without resentment. And most importantly, you preserve self respect. You don't compromise your values for temporary reassurance. You don't trade dignity for answers. You choose peace over proving a point. That choice is felt and it's remembered. That's why refusing to chase validation quietly builds lasting respect. Strong boundaries don't announce themselves with ultimatums or emotional speeches, they're revealed through behavior. When you walk away calmly, at the moment respect fades, you demonstrate boundaries without hostility, and that quiet enforcement speaks louder than confrontation ever could. Many men talk about boundaries, but few are willing to act on them. They explain what they deserve. They negotiate standards. They tolerate behavior that contradicts their values, hoping things will improve. But boundaries lose power when they're debated. Real boundaries are lived, not argued. Walking away peacefully shows that your standards are real. You don't threaten to leave. You leave not impulsively, not dramatically, but decisively. That decisiveness communicates self respect. It shows that you value your peace more than staying where respect is compromised. Another important aspect is that calm boundaries don't trigger defensiveness. When you explode emotionally, the focus shifts to your reaction instead of the behavior that caused it. By staying composed, you keep the focus where it belongs. There's no emotional smoke screen, just a clear consequence. This approach also builds credibility. Your words and actions align. You're not sending mixed signals. You're not staying while saying you deserve better. You're showing better by choosing differently. That consistency is deeply respected. Strong boundaries also create emotional safety. Paradoxically, people feel safer around those who enforce boundaries calmly. There's predictability, there's clarity, there's no fear of emotional volatility. That stability creates trust. Even in absence, walking away without hostility also preserves dignity on both sides. There's no need for blame or shame. You're not trying to win, you're simply honoring your values. That restraint elevates how you're perceived. Another key point is that boundaries create polarity. When you don't tolerate disrespect, you elevate your position. You're no longer trying to be chosen, you're choosing. That shift changes how attraction and respect operate. Boundaries also protect you from resentment. Staying where respect is lacking breeds frustration. Walking away early prevents emotional buildup. It keeps your energy clean and your intentions clear. You didn't create drama. You didn't issue warnings. You enforced your standards quietly, and that quiet strength lingers. That's how peaceful boundaries command respect without saying a word. There comes a point where words stop working, explanations fall flat. Reassurance sounds repetitive, and trying to be understood only creates more confusion. That's when silence becomes more powerful than conversation. Not the silent treatment, not withdrawal as punishment, but silence paired with forward movement, letting life speak instead of you. When you stop explaining yourself and start living fully, something shifts. Your focus moves back to your purpose, your growth, your peace. You don't disappear to make a point, you reappear in your own life, and that change is felt even from a distance. Silence removes emotional noise. Without constant communication, emotions settle, defensiveness fades, perspective forms. Life introduces contrast. New experiences highlight what was present and what is now missing. That contrast teaches lessons no argument ever could. Many men try to convince others of their value through words, but value is demonstrated through behavior and consistency. When you move on calmly, invest in yourself, and continue progressing, your absence carries weight. It communicates that your life is full and moving forward, not paused waiting for validation. Silence also allows truth to surface naturally, without pressure. People reflect honestly, they notice patterns, they compare, they remember. And in that space, respect grows, not because you demanded it, but because it's earned through perspective. This approach also keeps your dignity intact. You're not begging to be understood. You're not defending your worth. You're not stuck in emotional loops. You're choosing peace over proving a point. Letting life teach doesn't mean closing your heart. It means trusting that reality is a better teacher than emotion. If someone is meant to recognize your value, they will through absence, contrast, and time. And if they don't, you still win because your direction remains forward, your identity remains intact, your self respect remains unshaken. Silence, when paired with growth, becomes clarity, and clarity always commands respect.